back. Now recognize Mr. Crenshaw, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Sy, for being here. Frame this discussion. There's obviously generally a philosophical debate on how states should administer Medicaid. There's a line of thinking that Medicaid should simply be expanded so that there are more people enrolled in it, and in states like mine, there's a more targeted approach, and I think an approach that focuses on access and focuses on making sure that the actual infrastructure of healthcare is better funded so that people who need it actually have a place to go, not just a piece of paper that says they have a place to go. That's an honest disagreement. I think we'll debate that forever. The problem that we have today, and what I want to bring up to you, is that honest disagreement is there, and that would be fine, but now we're in a situation where you are actually targeting states like mine as a result of that disagreement. So as first reported by National Review, records show that CMS targeted Florida, Texas, and Missouri with attempted audits based on a new interpretation of Medicaid financing rules. That interpretation is summarized pretty well in a bulletin that you wrote. It's from February of last year regarding these hold harmless arrangements. Now, that interpretation of financing rules, by the way, those rules that 1115 waiver has been approved over and over and over again. But this new interpretation would cost states like Texas billions of dollars. And it can't help but wonder why, and it seems like it's an attempt to force them to go into Medicaid expansion. And I'm going to introduce that document for the record, that particular bulletin. So, Mr. Sy, can you explain why did you feel the need to release that new bulletin and on hold harmless arrangements and come up with this new interpretation of what's okay and what's not okay?
Appreciate that question. I think at the core of this, we support two very important things simultaneously. One is making sure that states, including Texas, is able to provide sufficient reimbursement funds for critical safety net providers, and the financing arrangements you're referencing really are funding state-directed payments, which this committee has talked about quite a bit, to support safety net and other providers in Texas. That is incredibly important, full stop. We also have an obligation to make sure we're administering the program consistent with federal law. And on the bulletin you're referencing with the quote-unquote hold harmless, that is not new interpretation from a CMS standpoint. That is our understanding of the statute in 1903, and that is how our team has been focused on that. I would note,
but it would represent a change in CMS policy, because it's, again, this framework has been approved by every other time, and now it's not, or now you're saying
the informational bulletin represents longstanding CMS policy. The arrangements in Texas are relatively new. The LPPF funding that is of more recent days. But I would note we, last week, alongside our managed care rules, put out another bulletin that noted that, as we've discussed with a range of states, the three you've referenced and others, it's clear that we stand by our interpretation of the statute, but it's clear that states need some time and data to transition, and we are giving states more time on that.
Okay, but which states, and why only these three states being audited? Because CMS has approved, quote, healthcare-related tax arrangements involving the redistribution of Medicaid payments among providers subject to the tax. I mean, we have this in writing, in emails that were FOIA, that CMS is aware that other states have very similar hospital tax arrangements, California being one, but they're not being audited. So why
it is far more than these three. These three came about because there were specific pieces of documents that were sent to and provided to CMS, and our staff has to respond in accordance with their statutory obligations to things sent to us. But the informational bulletin we released last week actually references that it appears that there are a range of states beyond those that you referenced, as you noted, that have these arrangements, and so we've been very clear of what the direction is and that we are giving all states time to be able to transition, really in support of ensuring there's sufficient payments in your state and other states for safety net
transition to what exactly?
To make sure that the financing arrangements are compliant with our view of federal statute as outlined by Congress.
And what would that, well, we have 6 seconds, but I would like to follow-up answer on
We'd be
what
happy to
exactly
follow up on that.
would
Thank you.
entail. I yield back.